All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Fabulous Harmony podcast. I am, as always, your co-host, Casey Rodarmor, along with my other co-host, the beautiful Erin Boop. And today we're joined by a very special guest of Parker Day fame, Parker Day, photographist and artist extraordinaire.
Photographist and artister. Like
Auteur.
Auteur.
Yeah. Welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm happy to be here. It's a pleasure.
We're in Nashville, so this is the first time I've met you in person. So we all were here because Parker and Casey spoke at Inscribing Nashville yesterday. They did like a fireside chat about fun. Much of that content we'll probably also disclose today on the podcast, but we figured since we're all together, might as well record an episode, talk about fun, talk about Parker and Casey's history, all that.
Indeed.
So
Yeah. And everybody's, always waiting for me to like sell out, This is it. Selling out. Cash grab. Let's fucking go.
Sell out, cash in, grab it.
Yeah.
Grab the cash.
the longest, like most high investment, high effort cash grab possible.
That's right.
That's what's ironic is it's like so obviously not a cash grab because we conceived of this before the Ordinals protocol was a thing.
Yep.
And
And every aspect of it was laborious and took forever and enormous investment.
Yeah, and it's like we didn't just rush to launch either,
Which we should have. We should have,
But here we are.
Yeah. No, it's good. And then you can draw it out and, do interviews, talk about it, get people to care about it. I mean, I feel like that's the way that a lot of these projects go too. It's like you want people to get invested and care about it before you actually do the mint or however you're going to do the sale, So I think it's all going according to plan from my perspective.
I totally agree. And it's an art project. Fundamentally, it's art. And art
Fundamentally.
and dysfunctional. And art takes time. It needs to live and breathe like a fine wine.
Mm-hmm.
It's aging perfectly.
Yeah, I agree.
Let's get ours.
Yeah, I know. I feel like I need this for
What is this?
It's Tinky Winky.
I think they're
What
aliens.
is a Tinky Winky?
Tinky Winky is the gay Teletubby. Yeah. It's gay because it has a triangle and triangles are gay now.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I thought because it's purple.
I also think that Tinky Winky had a handbag on the...
Okay,
Yeah.
slay. Yeah, we've got some, if you couldn't tell, we have some props from Fun with us today.
God,
How lucky
this
are we?
Okay.
Where do you get the props for like all of this?
So this one, which is really one of my personal favorites, I got at an estate sale. I love estate sales because you get to rifle through dead people's things and enjoy their crusty carpets and tattered wallpaper. So I like to imagine that little bear's life or lives.
Mm-hmm. Do you believe in haunted objects?
I don't know, but the kids on TikTok too.
Yeah, they do. That's why I asked. Because I think I learned recently from haunted TikTok, that like dolls are likely to be possessed by demons. That's like the thing. It's like, like demons like to disguise themselves as like innocent things. And so then it's like a haunted doll or whatever is like a common. I mean, that looks pretty haunted to me. That's why I asked. Yeah, right?
The creepy doll, I think it's just called doll prop, which is like a porcelain boy that's naked and it's got dangly limbs.
Oh, I know the one.
Yeah, I got that at an estate sale where there was a bedroom that was used exclusively for the mother of the house's doll collection. And I think she was probably the mother to only the dolls. There were hundreds of them, and it was very, very spooky going in there.
Yeah.
I think the spookiest of them all.
But you've never had any hauntings from any of the props? They've all behaved as normal. Yeah, okay, that's good then. I think you know. But yeah, I mean, it's cool that you pull the props from so many different places because it's just, there's so many different, like, I feel like eras represented in fun. Like,
yeah. And Parker you've said that it's supposed to be sort of timeless. We talked about, I was like doing the metadata for the collection and we were talking about what the different attributes of each item in the collection should be. It's 1,000 photographs. There's 100 models with 10 photographs for each model. And we have the model's name, the background color, the mood or emotion, and the prop. And I was like, well, why don't we add the date that the photograph was taken? And Parker was like, oh, no, we can't do that.
There's no way.
Yeah, we have the astrological sign of all the models.
I of course have noticed this.
So that brings an aspect of time into it, and the model's identity and existence, independent of the character. But in terms of the portrait photographed, I want them to exist in a kind of liminal, timeless space. And I do draw from all sorts of different eras and mash them up intentionally to kind of smash time together and point to timelessness, because my work and fun is all about identity creation and performance, but then I always am kind of thinking about and considering like what goes beyond all those temporary expressions of self, and to me that is like the timelessness that underlies it all, underlies everything.
How did you develop your style as a photographer?
When I moved to LA in 2014, I was like really deliberately like trying to forge a style and just find who I was and what I wanted to do.
But by that time you had been taking photographs for a long time. And did you have, like, before you started to like forge a style, were there aspects of your style, or were you sort of just more focused on like taking photographs and like the very basics of taking photographs?
Yeah, definitely. I started shooting photos in high school with a darkroom photography class.
Yeah.
So we were hanging out.
Yeah, we went to neighboring high schools. So this was, I mean, like, I'm very comfortable saying how fucking old I am. But yeah, this was like in the 90s. And you went to a high school called Maybach in Berkeley. And Maybach had a darkroom?
Yeah, Maybach was like a tiny hippie high school. There were 100 kids in all 4 grades. And amazingly they had a darkroom, which is such a blessing. It's such a rare thing even then. I took your portrait, all my friend's portraits.
You gotta uncover that portrait.
It's in my garage.
Yeah, I think I also have a copy of it. It's black and white. I'm in front of a tree, I think. Yeah. So you started taking photographs when? Like when do you remember starting to be interested in photography?
Even in high school, I was like, this is what I'm going to do with my life.
Mm-hmm.
What is it about photography?
Photography allows me to connect with other people and explore my questions about reality, really. Because photography is a document in a way, but if you document fantastical, I think that takes you to an interesting space.
Yeah, I think that's a good point to make about fun that maybe isn't obvious to people, is like they're film photographs and they're completely real in the sense that there's no like added CGI style effects to it.
The only post-processing is, I always forget if it's color grading or color correction, but the less invasive one where you're just trying to adjust the color levels so you sort of get what the photos looked like what things actually looked like. But that's it. All the hair and the makeup and everything is all actual hair and makeup.
Yeah. Like, I'm a documentary photographer, basically. I create characters, and I did all the costuming for fun, and then I just look like very simple.
So you've always been a film photographer then?
I have shot digitally. Like, I used to be a party photographer, like one of those obnoxious people who like runs around a nightclub with big flash and shoots all like drunken people sweaty.
I had a really interesting experience with party photography. So there's a site called Pim Eyes that you can do reverse image search. Specifically of faces. So you can upload a photograph of yourself and search for other photos on the internet that you have been in. And it uncovered literally photos that were taken of me at a party 10 years ago that I did not know existed on the internet. Just one night I was at like DNA Lounge in like 2012. And then like a couple years ago, 2022, I searched for it. And it's like, oh, there's me from 10 years ago that were randomly like turned up.
Damn.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, sadly or maybe fortunately, I disposed of some hard drives that had my old photos on them, which sometimes I'm like, oh, that's kind of sad, but on the other hand, like I kind of like just burning everything. Every once in a while, it's starting anew. But Ordinals.
I was gonna say, well, you can't do that.
Yeah, I can't do that. Yeah, that's right.
You've put your satanic dog loving art on the digital megalith forever. So
did you so when you were sort of in 2014 like looking for your style, were there traces of what would eventually become your style in the photographs you had taken before?
Yeah, 100%. So like me looking for my style, it wasn't like I was looking outside of me. No, I had this very clear realization that what I was to do was to look at what I had and what I knew. Mm-hmm. And so that meant like recognizing what I was always drawn to, and so that was like loud characters, colorful clothing. Mm-hmm. I had like this great collection of vintage clothes because I was just like hoarding from thrifting, and like weird props I was just buying. I don't know why.
Yeah, Parker's a tchotchke person. If you go to our house, there's tchotchkes everywhere.
You know, there's not that much.
Really?
At home.
That's bullshit. I remember going to your, I don't know, I mean at least one like stand.
But that was for the shoe.
Okay.
Yeah, that was for the shoe.
Okay.
Yeah.
I stand corrected. Parker is not a tchotchke person.
They have their own.
Oh, you know what? I just realized that I did not check these levels at all.
Oh, should we test?
Yeah. Oh no. Now it's recording.
And we're back. Absolute chaos.
Okay, we're back. Yep.
We're back. Where were we? Tchotchkes?
Yeah, Parker's not a tchotchke person. I lied. I was misinformed.
Fake
It's
news.
fake news.
Yeah. So when I was forging my style, I was just digging into what I had and what I knew, and like really looking at what I was always drawn to, which was like just freaky representations of self and these kind of like fantastical characters that you just like see on the street or meet in real life. Like I remember in my neighborhood in San Jose growing up, there was this lady, my mom said she was a bag lady, which I don't think is a term used anymore.
Yeah.
I know the type.
Yeah. And she was known as the raccoon lady in the neighborhood because she had like such thick black eyeliner that was just smeared, and she'd put more on, and she had like white curled permed hair, and like she had a very striking look. So me as a child, like I thought she was this mythical figure. Like in my mind, like I didn't know what a bag lady was. She was amazing. And then there were stories about her being like an heiress who kind of lost her mind and lost her way. And so it was really, there was mythology that other people were coming up with too. And so I think that's always just stuck in my mind, like the mythology of a person. And my first body of work I called Icons because I saw these people that I photographed as iconic, as representative of ideas rather than like a real person. But at the same time, there's so much humanity and heart that comes through each of them.
Was there a first photograph that you took where things clicked?
Yes.
Because you have a very recognizable style, these very colorful props, very like colorful makeup and colorful background. And it's like very identifiable. So what was the first time that you took a photograph and you looked at it and you were like, this is it?
Yeah, that's a great question. Because there was a portrait that I shot of someone who didn't want their real name in the series, but they go by Alex, and they have their top of their head shaved in real life, top of their head shaved, and then like long hair, and their portrait is with them like breasts, white blazer, holding a loaf of Wonder Bread very proudly with a little mustache.
This is for icons.
This was for icons that I shot in like 2015 or 2016. It's very early on. Yeah, it must have been 2015. And even when I shot it, I was like, ooh, this is weird. This like tickles something in me that I like. And I distinctly remember feeling uncomfortable when I posted it online, which was on Facebook because people weren't really on Instagram quite yet, not as much. And I was like, I don't know what people are going to think about this. And there was such a positive response with people being like, oh, this is interesting. I want more, do more. And that was all I needed. I was off to the races.
And it had all the components. It was like a made up model with a colorful background, colorful backdrop,
Red
shot on
velvet.
film.
Yeah. I was doing like a David Lynch thing with like curtain backgrounds. Yeah.
I think it's really interesting how artists are specialists. If you look at a lot of good artists, they really find something that like works for them and then they specialize in it. Like you look at Rothko, right? And like the paintings that Rothko are known for, these very sort of specialized, identifiable kind of abstract art. You know what I mean? And you've also kind of made the decision to specialize in a very specific look.
I love that you bring up Rothko because Rothko is one of my favorite artists. And people wouldn't expect that, I don't think, because Abex, you know. And but if you've had the pleasure of being in front of one of his large scale paintings, it's so moving. And like I'm on the verge of weeping right now just thinking about it. And I have cried in front of his paintings because you're just sucked into this kind of vortex of the color field, and color conveys emotion so directly without the intervening of the mind.
Yeah. I feel like the story that you tell of the bag lady and like that inspiration, that is such a Berkeley kid. Like, that's like to me.
Oh yeah, we had more characters in Berkeley.
Yeah, exactly. Like I feel like, and you know, I don't know exactly how much Berkeley has changed like since that time of your childhood in terms of bag ladies in Berkeley. But if you go to Berkeley now, it's like you will see characters like that all over the place. And I often wonder, because I've only lived in the area for 5 or 6 years now, and where I grew up was like middle of nowhere farm country. We had you know 1 or 2 bag lady types in my town, but it was definitely not the way that it is in Berkeley with like the characters in Berkeley.
You know, it's funny. I actually feel like the homeless people in Berkeley have gotten less iconic over time, because when I was a kid, there weren't that many homeless people. There were homeless people, but there were, you know, a few, and you got to recognize them, you know, where they usually were and where they were around, and if any of them had like weird clothes or whatever. And now there are just so many homeless people in the Bay Area. You're like, I can't keep track of them. There's new homeless people all the time.
I think Berkeley, at least from my experience, because I used to have to go to Berkeley campus all the time. I feel like Berkeley campus has a lot of its iconic homeless people like around camp. And I don't know exactly what that is about Cal campus that has that about it. But I've often wondered, because I'm like, you know, I ponder staying in the Bay Area, and I'm like, well, but like, how do you explain to kids like what is going on? Like, is it scary? Is it weird? And I like the idea of it being like fantastical or like a mythical creature.
Yeah, I think it's good to see the world that way and see the magic in the world.
There's this is a complete non sequitur, but there's like, are you familiar with like Montessori versus Walden schooling?
I have a toddler, so yes.
Yeah. But I'm not super familiar with it, like, because I don't have a toddler. But my understanding of like Walden schooling is that it's like you let the kid just be like, oh, fairies are real.
Waldorf, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm all about it.
That's what it feels like to me.
For me, because I do like mommy and me things, classes with Phoenix, my son. And I mean, I just love nothing more than poking around in the mud and looking at the bugs with him. Like, having him, I have an excuse to do that. Yeah. So it's fantastic.
When did you decide that Icons, your first series, was going to be a series, that you were going to do a whole bunch of these photographs in a similar style?
Very early on, it was a deliberate decision. There's a brilliant artist by the name of Nadia Lee Cohen, who many people are familiar with. She was working on a series that was at the time called 100 Naked Women. And then an old friend of mine, a photographer named Merkley, did a series of 111
I remember him. You sent me
women.
some of his photographs.
Yeah.
He had a very like color saturated, but very heavily processed in Photoshop style.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, I've been meaning to track Merkley down and thank him, because one time when he photographed me for his book of 111 naked women, he gave me a word of advice on photography. He just said, never stop shooting. And I just remember that was all I needed, because it was like, this is someone I really respected as a photographer, and he's telling me to not stop. And like, so once I took the Wonder Bread portrait, I was like, okay, I think there's something here. And I started shooting more portraits like that. And I just decided, you know what, I'm going to do 100. That sounds so just juicy and challenging. And it gave me something to work towards. And that was all I needed.
I also think that it's really smart as an artist that I think it's easy to get tired of a particular style if you're an artist, and like, you know, maybe do isolated pieces that don't really fit together. But I think actually if you want to present your work to the public and you want to become known and you want to people kind of know what you're about, that you actually should do a lot of the same thing or similar things. So you have this identifiable body of work that has like a theme. It's also the same idea on posting on Twitter. And one of the reasons that I'm very bad at posting on Twitter, that in reality, if you want to get a big Twitter following, you post the same thing over and over and over again, making the same points over and over again. And that's how people identify you as like an identifiable personality. And I think it's kind of similar for being an artist that, you know, instead of taking like, you know, Ansel Adams, right, known for these like classic shots, which are all very similar. They're all these like sort of black and white, like, you know, landscape photography. And if you don't do that as an artist, maybe people aren't able to figure out what you're about. You know what I mean? Yeah.
That's very, very true, and can be applied to many different forms of media. And it's branding. But I think there's something more than just that surface, like branding and recognizability. And it's that, like, as a person or an artist, when you dive into something, you really mine it for all that it's worth.
Yeah.
If you say like, okay, I'm going to stay here and dig my hole, and by God, I'm going to get gold. Like, you're going to keep on going and going and going. And that's really where you get like the rare gems, and the gold. And I think that's a good practice in many areas. It like reminds me of meditation, which like my meditation practice is so important to me. And sometimes I sit down to meditate and my mind's just like, and like, oh, I should go do this, I should go do that, blah, blah, blah. And there's an itch. And if I'm just like, doesn't matter, I'm just going to stay here, meditate. Then I sink in and it's beautiful and feel like the depth of peace and joy and all that. But you got to go to those depths and not allow yourself to be distracted.
So it was really interesting for me to see. It was so awesome for me to see, because I sort of knew like the basics of, you know, your sort of path with photography, that you'd been really into photography in high school. And at a certain point you were like, this isn't working and I'm not making money. And then you did a bunch of other things. And then all of a sudden icons was a thing. And by a thing, I mean, it was like, you know, you had a solo gallery show, and all of a sudden it was very cool. All of a sudden you were a successful photographer. How did that happen?
I don't know. I don't know. I had so much passion, so much love for what I was shooting when I was working on icons, and I was just meeting all of these fantastic people. Like, I had just moved to LA.
That's the really cool thing about icons is it's really this document of not just, you know, you having your own vision for what it's going to be, but all of these models that a lot of them did their own hair and makeup and they were sort of playing a character that they'd played before, some of them.
Yeah. There was like a lot more collaboration with icons and some just like straight portraits, as it were, or like the individuals I photographed, they had styled themselves. So that was like how they chose to be represented.
Yep.
And then there were some others that I had completely styled. So that really spoke to kind of like this malleability of identity and the blurred line between like a real person and a contrived character. Because when looking at them, you can't really tell like who's real and who's not. And yeah, it was so fun because I was creating and there wasn't any kind of like expectation of the public or within my own head. So I felt free. And then when I had the Icons solo show at Super Chief in LA in 2017, it was I actually sold out the whole show before it opened, which was insane.
Yeah,
like I got a call that afternoon, the afternoon prior to the opening, from Bill, the gallerist, and I heard that he was like grinning from ear to ear. He's like, Parker, I have some news. You're not going to believe this. We sold out the show.
That's sick.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's one collector. He bought the whole set of 100 portraits.
Well, I think it's when you see the portraits, you're like, oh, this is a thing. Like, I get it. Like it's obvious in a way, like that. It's very different from other photographs. It's very visually striking. It's like obvious. It's like when you see just these iconic styles that artists have, you know what I mean? Like when you see a Rothko painting, you see a certain kind of photograph, you're like, oh, like I get it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, I've had there was literally times where I was on a bachelorette trip and I was scrolling through Twitter, and just one of your tweets came up of you just tweeting one of the photos from Fun, and literally the person next to me who I just met, it's it was a bride's gay on the bachelorette trip. He looked over and he was like, is that Parker Day?
Oh, that's cool.
He knew your style, literally from just glancing, in the back of an Uber, me scrolling on Twitter, he could recognize your work. And it was just this crazy moment of I think it's exactly right. It's you have this iconic style. And so, yeah, when you see that, it's like you've tapped into something,
It's been really fun for me, because I've been exposed to your work a lot. And then I made the website for the collection at fun.film. And it was, once it was done and it had all the drop downs where you could select all of the different attributes and you could go see all the characters who had the same attribute, or go through all of the models, or look at all of the ones of the same prop. It's so much fun to scroll and click through and it's very fun to browse. And it's also I think it really works as the PFP collection aspect of it works really well. It is actually fun to look at all of the characters that have the same prop. It's not like looking at Bored Apes and they all have the same hat, because it's the same prop, but it's all different, and even the same, model or the same mood. It's just very fun to scroll through them and look at them. And every time I've shown somebody the collection, it's minimum, 5 minutes that we spend going through the models and clicking through the photographs.
That's cool. Yeah, you did an amazing job with the site.
Thank you.
It's everything I dreamed of before. For literally years, I was waiting for the opportunity to be able to sift through them that, just for my own pleasure.
Yeah.
And so it's really cool that what we created actually works and it's satisfying. Because when we started talking about this, and I was like, okay, I could do 10 different versions of the same model, but what if they all look the same and it's boring? Yeah. It is not boring. Yeah. They're not the same.
No, yeah.
Totally.
And it's really amazing that with really just so few elements, there's this transformation and something completely new.
Yeah. One thing I'm really incredibly happy about, which I think is honestly unprecedented and and I don't say that lightly, is that the whole collection is CC0 licensed. And that's a conversation that me and Parker had like a recurring conversation that we had about the licensing of the collection. And, you know, I'm like an intellectual property minimalist. I hate copyright. I hate trademark. I hate patents. I think they're just all dog shit. But, you know, as a fine artist, like that is a part of, you know, how you make money. It's a very important part of, you know, how the whole industry works. And so I'm really, and I didn't want to pressure Parker into being like my own, you know, intellectual property, you know, ideas, you know, but I really hoped that it would eventually come together and make sense and do the collection as CC0. And I don't think that there's another example of that large of a body of work that is done that well. That's like real professional art that is released under a CC0 license, like period. Like I do not think that there is another
big win for CC0.
Big win for CC0. And I just think it's incredibly cool that there's a way to sell the art that does not rely on intellectual property, that does not rely on essentially leaning on, you know, the state to enforce your weird rights that people can't, you know, copy these images around. I totally hope that we eventually see some corporation do like an ad, just like a straight ad where they just completely rip off a photograph and put text over it. And like, that's the ad. Like,
I would love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not precious about my work. Like some artists are like, oh my God, somebody's copying me and they're biting my style. Like, no, please take, really enjoy.
Yeah. I think that's the right perspective to have in like the age of the internet. Like, it's because I think it's always like people that they're boosting the thing that you do, you know,
I'm
like
saying.
they, you know, when 20 Mr. Beast copycats do his thumbnail and his style of video, it just makes his style of video more popular. And I think that's true for almost every artist or creator, that it's just like expanding your audience, expanding your niche, like through that sort of stuff. You guys should tell the story of how fun came to be. Because so Icons was 2017.
Yep. And then right after Parker finished Icons and became successful, CryptoPunks was happening. Like there were these really high ticket sales, and I saw Icons.
And Icons was NFT. Like
no,
in 2017. No.
So it was not. Icons was physical prints.
Yes.
That
edition
sold out
and
in a
galleries.
physical gallery. But then you did do NFTs on like.
Well, here, wait. Let me go through the whole timeline. So 2017, and me and Parker were still in touch. Me and Parker have kept in touch ever since high school. And I was like, these are perfect for NFTs, right? They're portraits. They're very colorful. They have this kind of like cohesive. They're cohesively a collection. And so I was telling Parker like, oh, you've got to like make NFTs. You should actually make NFTs with this. And we sort of talked about it for a while, and I got a domain, icons.la. If you go to icons.la, to this day, it actually redirects to the, collection, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yep. That Parker did eventually do. But in 2017, Parker was like, I don't know. I should have pressured you. I should have really pressured you. Like I should have. Like it would have been so easy. But yeah, Parker was like, no, I don't really see it. You know,
did you have like ideological hangups? Because I feel like that's often a thing with artists where they're just like,
no,
this
Parker's a
real.
mercenary.
No. By 2017, I had finally come around to embracing crypto. I wish I had gotten on the boat in 2014, the little yacht, or the little dinghy that turned into a great yacht.
Yeah.
But 2017, I was like, oh yeah, I'm trading. I'm super in. But yeah, with CryptoPunks, I was like, this is interesting. This is fascinating. But I don't know. Like, I'm such an analog girl. I don't know if there's the market or the interest.
And I don't think there were, in fairness, I don't think there were photographs that had taken off.
No. Nothing like in the traditional art sense. But it would have been cool for it just to have that provenance of existing, of having been the first.
Yep. So we talked about it a little bit and then didn't do anything with it. And then in 2022. I don't remember why. I think it was maybe because I was thinking about NFTs, because at the time then that was when I had started working on what would eventually become Ordinals. And then we talked about it, and then we decided to do it. And then obviously these photographs are expensive to shoot, takes time. There was hair and makeup and everything. So I helped fund the collection, and Parker did the
labor.
Took the photograph, did everything else.
Blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah, I can take zero responsibility for any of it. And then, we wrote up like a little contract, which is really funny. I go and look at it.
It's cute.
Yeah, and it's like Parker agrees to take the photographs, and I agree to create the NFT smart contract to launch them.
And he did.
Yeah, and then I think actually like one thing that came of that was, I don't remember if I'd done that beforehand, but I was experimenting with ERC 721 contracts. Mm-hmm. And it's just, and ERC 721 is the NFT standard on Ethereum. And it's so fucking bad. It's so fucking stupid. The whole thing is just dog shit. It's all loose. There's no guarantees. You don't get anything. It's this interface, but the implementation is undefined. And that definitely informed like Ordinals. Yep. And so I didn't know at the time whether or not it would make sense to put it on Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. I sort of had the same feeling about the intellectual property side as putting it on Bitcoin, where I was like, I have these ideological things that are important to me. I like Bitcoin. I like CC0. But I never wanted to push something that didn't really make sense. Mm-hmm. On Parker, I'm very sensitive to like Parker's career and like all these things that are important to her. And so we didn't know if it would make sense to do it on Bitcoin at the time. I thought that there would be a very remote possibility that things would kind of come together fast enough.
Yeah, well, of course, if it's like, when there were 5 people in the Ordinals Discord,
right,
like it's hard to be like, hey, Parker.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think it's similar to like, the like, oh, I should have listened to you when you pushed this in 2017 type of thing.
I've never been as forceful as I think in hindsight I should have been.
Yeah.
Like in 2013, where I was into Bitcoin, I was telling my friends about Bitcoin, and I personally was like very into it, but I never told them like, oh, you should buy Bitcoin. You should get like a lot. You can get as much as you can. Right. I never did that because I never have like, I'm like very confident in Bitcoin long term, but I never have like price predictions. I never have like, oh, this is going to go up in this like timeline, or, oh, this is definitely not going to fail.
Yeah.
So I never, wasn't, forceful enough.
Well, I mean, I think a lot has changed since you guys initially like started fun, right? Like, and I think it's interesting because in a way photography is not the best fit for Ordinals, but it also is a major flex.
I think
so it's like, it's kind of, there's pros and cons.
I actually think
make it kind of perfect.
I actually think it's a fantastic fit. I think everybody is always trying to look for the lowest cost, most efficient way to do things, right? They want to make a collection and they want to sell it for as much money as possible, and they want to spend as little money as possible producing the collection. I mean, that is essentially where generative PFP projects come from, right? You have 10 attributes and you make 10 little overlays for each attribute, and you mix and match them, and all of a sudden you have 10,000 pieces at the lowest possible cost to produce it. And when you put them on chain, I mean, Ethereum, you put them on IPFS, but if you were to do it on Bitcoin, you only have to put each attribute on chain once, and then you just mix and match. And I think that is like a profit maximizing way to go. But I think in reality, like, these things, NFTs are not scarce, right? NFTs are not scarce. Like anybody can, pixels on the blockchain are not inherently scarce, right? And so if you do something in a very low cost way, everybody can imitate it. And so I think that actually making things that are expensive to produce, that cost a lot of money to put on chain, that is the the core.
It's a flex.
It's I wouldn't even say it's a flex. It's so so shallow, but it's like it gets to the core of what makes things valuable in art. That it is hard to produce, that it is costly. Like there, you know, and you know, I think it's easy for some people to look at this collection and be like, oh, it's Photoshop, oh, it's AI. It's not. And if you spend any time looking at it, you look at all the details, it's pretty obvious that it's not. And I think that is what ultimately will give things value, like in the long term, is actually being very costly to produce and expensive.
Yeah, and it's 1,000 photos. It's 100 models, 10 photos of each model. And then, I mean, if you sort by model on fun.film, you can see how different every photo of the model, like it's just crazy, the different moods and like characters that are created. And then how much Bitcoin did you spend inscribing it?
I don't know actually. So
I mean 1 point something, between 1 and 2 Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Okay.
For some reason I thought 1.6.
That might be around it. I don't remember exactly. I don't like to think about it very
I
much.
feel like
I don't know.
For all degens out there, like as much in the red as you might be from runes or ordinals, you probably will never be as in the red as Casey has ended up from ordinals.
Yeah, I think I inscribed them at like 8 point something sats per VByte as the fee. And of course now fees are lower. I could have gotten a 50% discount. Yeah, absolutely.
But you just made this whole point about how art's costliness is.
That's right. That's right.
And I would say that the first, I think it's 58, the first 58 that you inscribe, and then the first 100 are the most valuable because you rushed to get those out, and it was more costly, and people were excited, like, oh my god, what's happening? What is this?
What's the order that they're inscribed? Is it? I assume it's like 100 models, or it's like 100 models and then 100 models.
Yeah, each 100 is the same. The first 100 are 100 models in some order, and then the next 100 are the next photographs of those models in the same order.
Same order.
So like 0, 100. 200, 300 are the same model.
And you guys are the first and second models.
0.
Yep. And then who's so there were other, like, two of Parker's other major collaborators were the your assistant, your
makeup artist
Eden and Arius, your
lovely assistant.
Yes. Yep. Are they 3 and 4? Are they?
No, I think I put, after you would be 2.
Yeah.
I think that's
it's really fun that we like starting to count from 0 is like a programmer like thing, and now
well, like, okay, let me take a moment to say I love that I'm number 0 because it's null, and because my work is all about like identity. I want to be 0. I want to be the nothing.
As the photographer.
Like conceptually, it tickles me. But yeah, then I think I put the Bored Ape, Maeve as a Bored Ape after you. And then, I don't know, I always choose my selects very intuitively, and people will always
What do you mean a select?
Oh, like so say I'm going through my negatives and picking out which photo, I just pick it intuitively. Like people always ask me like, oh, don't you like deliberate? Isn't it so hard to pick which one you're going to use? I'm like, no, not at all. It's not hard if you don't think. And honestly, like I'm very happy with what comes out, like, because I want a guttural response from people. So I need to have that right out the gate. So it was very easy to order them and everything.
Yeah, I do. I will say, from like finding the best selfie in a grid on your camera roll, it's always like you got to zoom out to the grid and then be like, okay, which one catches my eye? That's the selfie that you post. That you post. You know. Yeah. So 100%. I think that strategy makes sense. I'm not like super familiar with how film photography works. Like, I mean, obviously you can't see the photo when you take it, right? So how many photos would you take to find the 10 that would like end up in the collection?
So I do actually do digital tests. So in my studio, which is my living room, I take like a digital shot first.
Do you have the same do you sort of match the characteristics of your digital camera to your film camera, like the lens?
Yeah,
and
a little bit. I don't have the same lens because I just have a cheap shit lens on my digital one because nobody sees the digital photos, just for me. Yeah, it's just like, oh, okay, the lighting looks right. You know, it captured. Yeah, so I come from a background of learning like the old hard way of photography.
Oh yeah. I mean, I remember one of my first memories of photography was so demoralizing. I took a bunch of pictures and then I went and I got them developed, and you know, I was like 15 or something. It was the 90s, and like they were trash. They were blown out, they were overexposed, they were underexposed, they were blurry. Like photography used to be hard. Like it used to be really hard with this like delayed feedback from taking the photo and then actually seeing what it looks like.
Yeah. So when I was in art school, the Academy of Art, terrible.
Many such cases.
Yeah. I shot on a Hasselblad, a medium format film camera, roll film camera. And then I had a Polaroid back on it. So what you would do is you took off the film holder portion of the camera, you put on the Polaroid holder portion, and then you would take your photo, you know, with your strobes and everything, and take the Polaroid, you'd peel it apart, you'd like wait, and then you would see like, oh, okay, looks good. Now I'll shoot my film. So I just do the same thing, but with digital instead of Polaroid. But then to answer your question, when I actually started shooting film, I only shot like 6 to 10 frames of each emotion. Because I really, really believe in constraints and how that forces creativity.
Yeah.
So
yeah. If you have no constraints, it's oftentimes very hard to figure out what you're going to do. You know, if it's a fully blank slate. But then if you have constraints when you're making art, all of a sudden you are engaging with those constraints, and it kind of becomes sort of an engineering problem about like, how can I optimize for those restraints? It gives you a framework for what you can do.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you feel like that in
yeah, absolutely. I mean, all sorts of, all of ordinals and inscriptions and runes and everything fully comes out of that. It's me looking at Bitcoin, and, you know, I have this like blank slate idea, like, oh, I want NFTs, and oh, I want tokens or whatever. But then it's completely informed by the constraints. You know, I mean, the fact that inscriptions are based on ordinals, which are tracking individual Satoshis. Like, I didn't sit down and think like, oh yeah, I want to be able to track individual Satoshis. Wouldn't that be cool? It was entirely constraint based. It was entirely like, oh, you need a thing that you can transfer. How can I sort of trick Bitcoin into transferring these things? How do I, you know, fully working within these constraints? And it's in all aspects of the protocol and how everything works and how everything is UTXO based, and features that I added and features that I didn't added. Like, all of it comes from constraints that I was like working within. And there's a lot of like, I mean, I take aesthetic concerns very seriously when I write code and I write systems. And I feel like it's a lot of the same things. And a lot of the time you really know when you came up with the right thing, because it's very aesthetically appealing and it's very simple. I think a lot of engineers have had this experience that you're working with a set of constraints and you come up with a particular design or a particular solution, and it's just bad. You're working with it, you're trying to add things, you're trying to change things, you're trying to fix problems, and everything is just going badly. And usually that's because your aesthetics are bad. Like, the aesthetics of your design are bad, and it's sloppy. There's extra shit that you don't need, whatever. And then you come up with a different design and everything kind of works. It's easy to add. You're like, oh, I need a new feature. And then you're like, oh, that's easy. That's just like one line of code. That's very simple. And it's sort of a difference in aesthetics, that the aesthetically good design oftentimes has that everything works kind of quality. An example of that in ordinals and inscriptions is the recursion feature, where inscriptions can access the content of other inscriptions. That was literally like one line of code, 1 or 2 lines of code that just came from the fact that we were already using like the web, and we were already using like sandboxing, and it just kind of came together in like a less aesthetically good design. And I'm sure you could describe it in different ways. You could describe a design as being aesthetically good, or you could describe it from an engineering lens as having some sort of like simplicity or mechanical sympathy, I think is a great term.
Mechanical sympathy.
Yeah,
Ooh.
mechanical sympathy is when you're using the tools according to how the tools want to be used, you know? And that's the same kind of idea, right? You that I just said a second ago is like, oh, you're trying to screw in a hammer in a screw with a hammer, and it's not working very well. And then all of a sudden you use a screwdriver, you try to bang in the nail with the same hammer, and everything kind of works. So yeah, you've got to work within those constraints and find the aesthetically beautiful thing, and find the way to use your tools that has mechanical sympathy.
First of all, I do want to say I think mechanical sympathy would be a great fictional short story title for you.
Yeah.
Similar
Or a
to
band
declarative
name.
programming type of mechanical sympathy is beautiful. But also I think I do feel like I mean everything that you just said is like it's something that I think comes obviously to you, but it does not come obviously to a lot of other people. And I do think that's like your version of genius is I think you're very good at talking to computers and like speaking computer language. Like I always think that like your intelligence is linguistic intelligence. Like that's why you're good at speaking a lot of different languages and like picking up languages. And it's like, you're good at talking to the computer. And that's why you're also like good at sympathizing with the computer and understanding what the computer wants, because you can actually speak to it.
Yeah, I think that's kind of true. And like I identify, to me, writing a good program feels a lot like writing a good piece of prose, that you're sort of rewording it until the language really works and really flows and it's really simple, and you're not using these like circumlocutions and like awkward turns of phrase, you know? Yeah, I could go on about such things for a long time.
I love that you describe code as aesthetically pleasing.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
I feel like I know what you're talking about, even though I don't.
Yeah.
at the
Oh
same
no, I mean,
time.
it comes up all the time. I mean, you know, for example, like one thing that Steve Jobs said is like, oh yeah, why is Microsoft bad? It's bad because they have no taste. They just don't have any taste. They don't have any taste for like the whole of the thing that they're building. Linus Torvalds, who created the Linux kernel, kind of said the same thing, is that you have to have taste as a programmer. And you know, the code in the kernel is like very like gross in a lot of ways code, but you have to have that taste, and it oftentimes does boil down to like mechanical sympathy. And I identify like, I mean, I write like occasionally, and writing a good paragraph is very simple to writing a good piece of code. It looks good. It looks very clean. And I probably spend too much time like refactoring things and changing the form and not the function, just so it sort of has this like appealing sort of nature. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, you've always been like very creative and artistic and brilliant. And it's true. But yeah, I don't think you like talk that much about like your kind of visual art interests or like other art interests like prose. And so I don't know, like how do you feel like art and creativity has manifested through you, and what is your relationship with it?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, like I like art. I like doing visual things. Yeah, I mean, you know, it's also kind of the same thing. Like a lot of the times when I've done something visually that I like, it winds up being because I found some clever way to combine technical approaches in an aesthetically interesting way. It's also about the bang to buck ratio. Like when you have a bad design, the bang to buck ratio is very low. You have to put in a lot of work to get a little bit of output. But then if you luck onto some technique that is like good, then all of a sudden you do a little bit of work and you get a lot more cool stuff out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You used to do like visuals for like parties, right? Am I remembering that?
Yeah. That's right. And yeah, my favorite technique for this that I eventually came onto is another case of sort of mechanical sympathy, which is that you do these very, very simple image filters, but then you change these image filters, and each image filter is audio reactive. And through a chain of very, very simple image filters, you get this very like visually complex output that it's not obvious how it came from all of these very, very simple image filters. Yeah, I think engineering, the combination of engineering and art is very, very fun. It's not something that I do as much as I would like, because it's, there's no, it's, just make some, it's not, as I want to ultimately I like building systems that people use instead of making these like sort of isolated artifacts. So that's why I spend more time writing computer programs that do things instead of make pictures. But yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Your code's art too.
Yeah,
It's cool to hear that you write prose too, because your mom's a writer.
Yeah, my mom's a writer. Yeah, she's a novelist.
She and I are actually in a magazine, like a publication
together.
Oh, really? Did you know that?
Really? No, yeah. I didn't know.
Yeah, it's really funny. Like I forget what it was called. It was like a compilation of women writers and artists. And I can't remember if my piece was combined with hers or not. I think so, but I was like, Thaisa Frank.
Yeah.
Wait a second.
Yeah.
That's Casey's mom.
Yeah. It all comes together.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah. Nice. I mean, this conversation has gone in a lot of really nice, nice meandering directions. Like it's nice to have an artist on the pod.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Delighted to be here. You guys are wonderful.
I do want to go through specific images in fun on the podcast, because I think something that everyone should do who's interested in the collection is like go to fun.film and just focus on like find an image that grabs you and like blow it up so you can see all the details and just see that image, not that image with all the other images, but just look at it, because like the level of detail and crazy storytelling in these images it's insane. Like that contains, I mean, I'm really glad that like you explained your perspective of like icons initially, like, because I think viewing it through that perspective of like each of these characters as having like a fantastical fictional story that's also real in that image, and all of it is real, captured on film, like it comes across like that connected the dots to me. But I feel like every single image feels that way, and I think that's also what will make it like kind of the craziest, best PFP collection ever in a way too, because like if you identify with your fun character, there's a lot to it. So yeah, I want to go through a couple and just like dissect and get the story from you on them. So yeah, let's do that.
Yep.
All right.
Our phones are currently taking
Yes,
video.
look at Parker's phone.
Look at Parker's phone.
Let's see. What have I got here? So let's start with Hot Camel.
Oh,
Yeah.
sexy Camel.
Such
Stole
a
my
babe.
heart.
Yeah.
So Hot Camel, model named Austin. He's a handsome man. As
He
a
even
human.
looks like Austin Butler as Elvis.
Yeah,
Like that was the
yeah,
first thing I
yeah,
thought when I saw
totally.
that his name was Austin, and I was like, oh my God. Like
I think everyone in the room was a little hot for Camel dude once he became the camel. And yeah, what's cool about his character for me is like this was an homage to my dad, who was a camel man. He was a camel smoker, and like I remember as a kid, he collected the camel cash.
Oh damn! Blast from the past.
Yeah. So every pack of Camel cigarettes would have like this little C note, they called it, this little coupon that like had Joe Camel on it, and you could turn your Camel cash.
They had like a little
in.
catalog of like shitty shit you could buy for your Camel
Oh, it's
cash.
so great.
Like a Camel like clock or whatever.
damn.
Yeah, a windbreaker with Joe Camel on it. Or I have a mesh crop top that says Camel on it, which is just so iconic.
Damn.
Yeah, and he's wearing like a couple R. Crumb buttons, and R. Crumb, the iconic underground comic book artist from like the 60s onward, actually drew my dad's business card for his comic book store.
That's so cool.
And then the Camel Man is wearing my dad's brass belt buckle that my dad wore like practically every day of his life. since the 70s until his passing.
How did you find Austin?
He was referred to me by another artist I know. Yeah, like I think I posted on my Instagram stories, like, who wants to be hot Camel? And like my friend was like, oh yeah, I know the guy for you. Done. Nice. My dad was cool, you know, he was a cool dude. And growing up in his comic shop, like, really warped me. I was gonna say shaped me, but let's keep it real. And my portraits like very much function like comic book covers.
Yeah,
or
totally.
trading cards. So I mentioned that Crumb did my dad's business card, and my dad was like a big purveyor of the underground comics and was a publisher of them as well. Now, I was a child, so I was forbidden from looking at these, you know, lusty comics.
Who could forget our Crumb's big titty ladies?
Oh yeah, and not just that, but like he drew himself as like a diminutive man, like climbing up their tree trunk legs. Yeah.
Who among us?
Yeah. So all these comic books were behind the counter, and I was a very respectful child, especially of my dad. I revered him. So I didn't look in the forbidden comics, but I looked at their covers. and that gave me so much for my imagination to chew on.
Yeah.
And that was more satisfying than ever looking inside the pages.
Comics are so fucking insane when you're a kid. I remember when I was a kid, we had, books all over the house, and a lot of like my crazy like formative memories are finding like weird ass books that were around the house. One of them was like a book about Victorian sexuality. Oh. Yeah, that was interesting. But I also remember there was a copy of Mouse, the comic book by Art Spiegelman, which, looks, like some kind of graphic novel. And then you get into it, and it is a crazy account of his father's experience in the Holocaust told in comic book form.
Yep.
And I remember finding that, and it was like mind blowing as a kid.
With mice.
Yeah.
Portrayed as mice. I remember the swastika on the cover with the little mice. I was like, what is that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I hope these characters function like that for people, as like provoke imagination and curiosity. I remember years ago, someone DM'd me on Instagram. This woman said, I bought your Icons book for myself, but my kids won't let me have it, and they fight amongst themselves who gets to sleep with it.
Damn.
Like, yes, warping the little mind.
I mean, I think that's actually like the one, like if you make art that kids like, this is such a like compliment to your style, because kids like do not like things because somebody told them to like it, or because it's popular or whatever. Like, I mean,
or pretentious
or pretentious.
Cool,
yeah. A lot of the things that are popular among kids, they are popular because like kids like them, and it's a very pure sort of appreciation. It's the ultimate compliment.
But you guys are both Aries, right?
Yeah.
That's right.
That's the child of the zodiac too. It's the first signs. It's the baby.
We're actually very rare in the fun
Yeah, that's
collection.
right. It's you, me, and I think 2 other models.
And Eden, the makeup artist. So that's weird. That like the three of the core members are Aries, and then only a couple models.
Right.
Those are some rare attributes for the fun collection.
That's right. Yeah. The legendary eggplant background is like another one of the rare.
It's too much like the purple. That's it. Okay, so which one should we do next? Let's talk about the ants here. That's Eva. So I'm a big fan of Cindy Sherman, of course. Like, my work is often related to her self-portrait work, which has to do with like her inhabiting different identities. And they're all self-portraits. So she had this one with ants all over her face and smiling kind of antagonistically to the camera, I guess you could say, but sweetly at the same time. And so I did my own version of ants crawling on the face. And I like this moment dreamily with the young corn can and like kind of a picnic tableau with her dress.
And who's the model?
Her name's Eva.
And how did you find her?
Instagram as well. She's cool because we have like a transcendental meditation connection.
Nice.
She's like a TM teacher and worked on like, I don't know, the TM ranch or whatever. I actually don't know. They have like a facility, a compound in farmland, heartland somewhere. So oftentimes I'll pick a model and then there will be some like weird connection that we have or they have to the character that I select for them. And that's always cool for that to like come out.
That's nice. That's how you know you're on the right track.
Yeah. And I got into TM because of David Lynch.
I was going to say David Lynch is like a huge transcendental meditation.
Yeah. I do a different type of meditation these days, but yeah, David Lynch is incredible and a huge inspo. And Pierre and Gilles, they're a French artist duo, and they shot a lot of very dreamy, sexy, gay sailor boys. So when I photographed the hunky Dalton, he's such a hunk. If you see his whole bod, like he's tall, he's built, he's just a hunk, but he's like so sweet and soft. I photographed him before this, so I already like knew him a little bit, and I wanted to bring that out. So my favorite photo of him is where he's sad and he has like glossy skin, and, like
beautiful,
dreaming of a lost love. And then, so Dean, I've photographed a bunch of times. Dean Evans is brilliant performer and clown. He's a clown. He teaches clowning.
Like a legitimate clown.
Yeah, he's a legitimate clown. Like serious clown and performer. So he's just great at being a character actor and emoting. I love this moment with my cat Hamy, Hamilton if you fancy, where Dean is a mouse man who looks kind of ashamed to be having this intimate moment with a Himalayan cat, wearing like his customer service uniform. Like this is what he does. He comes home from work, and cuddles with his cat in the shadows, curtains drawn.
It's just wrong.
Yeah. He's caught in the act. And then we have, let's do Pigman.
Yeah, these are the ones where I'm like, she took it too far with this one. This one is just offensive and horrifying to me. The Pigman.
So the one, but also it's funny. One of the ways in which I was like trying to exert creative control is I was like, Parker, we've got to have more hot women. We need more hot women. That was like literally my only piece of feedback. And Parker was like, fuck no, Pigman, let's fucking go.
Yeah. Doubling down. Oh, I love Pigman so much. I have Pigman with the whip above my wet bar in my living room. But here he is with his canned ham. It's like he looks very trepidatious, like he knows what his fate holds.
And who's the model and how did you meet them? I'm always really interested in these little details.
Yeah, it's Ryan. He hosts a great podcast on like Hollywood and it's kind of like lurid stories. And he's a comedian, does stand up, and he's just an awesome performer. I photographed him before as Patrick with SpongeBob.
Nice.
So he was Patrick the starfish with cone head and pink body, and that they had like kind of a lover's moment on the beach in my shoot. Yeah, so here we have our satanic panic moment with Andrea. I got this prosthetic of the pentagram, and I just had this vision for like a Manson girl character. So that's what I was thinking of, and then of course we had to point it downwards That's what you do with the pentagram when you're trying to summon Satan.
Right.
You know, you got to
Right.
draw him up. And have the crucifix upside down, of course, because she has evil intent in her eyes.
Yeah, she looks like Ethel Cain to me. The like house in Nebraska, like Southern Gothic, satanic kind of vibe to it. What are her pins?
Oh yeah. So one says, "Have you had your big Olaf today?" And I didn't know this at the time, but apparently, Big Olaf is like an ice cream shop where people died in Florida because they got some bizarre illness from the ice cream. Yeah. And then the other one says, "Yes, I accept tips."
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love this one. She's like one of my
love
favorites.
That one. The intensity in her gaze is so good, and her nose, her nostrils a little flared.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I feel like this is also one where it's just like, it's crazy to think the film photography aspect. Like, I feel like I always forget because of how surreal these are. Like, just how analog and real they are. It's like you're just capturing such crazy moments, you know?
Totally, yeah. And I have all the wardrobe still and the props. I mean, it's very much like a material, physical based thing.
Yeah. No, I mean, again, go to fun.film, click on a model that speaks to you.
Or a mood. I mean, just scroll down, see how you're feeling, how you want to feel. Pick horny, pick frightened. I don't know.
That's how I'm feeling and how I want to feel at all times.
Yeah. Pick your astrological sign.
Yeah.
You know? I think the vampire guy, I'm a Leo. I'm pretty sure the vampire guy is a Leo.
Love Leos. Just, speaking of huge oversight, Casey Rodarmor, that Aaron was not included.
See, when you said you needed more hot women in the collection,
Yeah.
you
That's
could have
right.
supplied
That's
one.
right. Yeah.
huge oversight. Yeah.
Next time around.
Yes. Yeah. We need to do another edition.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun. I'm number one after Parker. And going down to shoot was like just a ton of fun. It was like it was great. It was awesome.
Yeah, I have a question for you. So, when I was emailing with you about what character you wanted to do, you said, I want to look ripped and jacked and insane.
Yeah.
And I was like, yes. So yeah, how do you feel about your WrestleMania?
Oh,
character?
I fucking love it. I love it. I love pro wrestling. I have like this crazy blonde wig. There's also one where like I'm like covered in blood. Yeah, it's great. It's Ric Flair-esque. He was a wrestler who had blonde hair, and whenever he was busted open, as they say in the wrestling biz, i.e. bleeding from his forehead, he'd get all this blood on his blonde hair. Yeah, I love it. And I love looking insane and retarded, you know, like, yeah.
You do.
Yeah.
You were so good. Like Eden and Arias, I think were kind of like in awe because like the moment you got in front of the camera, you're like, yes, let's go.
Yeah. No, that was rad. That was so much fun.
That's how you always, I mean, because we do a lot of costumes here on How Many Podcasts. So like, I feel like that's always, you like, as soon as the camera's on, you just
I like to perform.
You're
You know,
a
what can I
performer.
say?
You're a theater kid.
know? Yeah,
Did
theater
you
kid.
ever do like dramatic arts?
I mean, you know, I was in theater in high school, and we did like some plays, but you know, not, you know, it's like shitty ass like Agatha Christie, you know, whatever. Yeah. And
yeah,
I was
but once
not,
a theater kid, always a theater
I was
kid.
not particularly good. I was not particularly good in high school. You know.
At Aerosmith, they had.
At Aerosmith, yeah, they had a theater program. That was the neighboring high school that I went to.
I went there. For
Oh yeah,
a
you did.
year.
Yeah. Aerosmith was such a shitty school, man.
Yeah, I was barely there, honestly, except for Japanese class. I
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. Well, the teacher was also pretty hot.
Of course.
That's
boy,
why.
did I have a crush on her.
What was her name? May? Was that it?
Neika.
Oh, that was a different
Oh, do you had a
teacher.
different one?
Yeah.
Oh no,
because
you
I was
missed
like, I
you
would
missed the
describe
really
Not the
hot.
teacher
You
of
missed the really hot
experience.
Japanese teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went to Japan with my teacher.
Oh, yeah.
I almost got thrown out of the country.
Oh, nice.
What'd you
Yeah.
do?
I was the accessory to a crime.
Oh, no.
What crime?
My friend stole CDs.
Oh,
At like the EMG music store in Tokyo. It was a 2-disc trance compilation. It was
classic
like a raver.
gaijin.
Yeah, and I had given him my baby fat puff coat to conceal the CDs with, so we were both taken down.
Oh, damn.
Wow.
Yeah.
Damn.
We had
just
to-
disrespectful.
Yeah. But I want to say if we do a follow-up to this, episode, I want to style you both and myself, so we can do full character.
Absolutely.
Oh, nice.
Maybe we'll do
We
like
can come
an
to
update
LA
with some alpha. Or
Yeah,
something.
yeah, yeah.
Love it.
Yeah, actually, once. Well, that's a good segue to the final question that I want to ask you guys. When fun? When can people get fun? How can they get fun? Do you have any plans to distribute?
We're working on it. We're slowly, machinations are happening behind the scenes. Me and Parker don't know anything about, actually like selling a collection. So we're proceeding very cautiously, just going through, talking to people, having discussions. But yeah, things are happening behind the scenes. Who knows when it's going to happen, but it's happening.
I think it's good that you guys are talking to people and like trying to figure out the right way to do it, because it is such a special collection.
Yeah, and we also do want to like sort of engage the traditional art world as much as possible, because we think it has sort of crossover appeal with the traditional fine art world and traditional fine art collectors.
Yeah, yeah. And, the perverts, the weirdos, the Satanists.
That's right.
We got to bring them all
My
in.
people.
Yeah. The icons. Cool. Well, maybe when you actually know the plan and it's coming out, we go down to LA, we get done up, and we do another round of this.
Oh yeah,
Comment if
dude,
you
that'd
wanna
be
see
sick
it.
if we did a full episode in like crazy ass costumes and
that'd
makeup.
be awesome.
Yeah, do it up.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
I could do a set or something, or
Hell
on
yeah. Hell
location.
yeah. Cool. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Parker.
Thank you so much.
Thanks
This
for
was
coming to
great.
Nashville.
Having
Thanks
me.
for speaking at Inscribing Nashville. It was great.
Thanks for making me create fun.
Oh yeah, no, dude, it's all you. It's all you. Yeah, very happy to play a supporting role.
Yes. Well, very, very supportive, and I'm so grateful for your friendship and your support and encouragement.
I think it's so awesome. I also think it's such a cool like story and path that we've known each other for so long, and then our two sort of very disparate skill sets and interests have somehow intersected in such a fortuitous way. I think it's awesome.
Bizarre and delightful, because I've always had nothing but respect and love for you, and so it's really cool that we're converging in this way at this time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, we'll see you
right.
guys next time.
Yeah. See you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.